We believe that being a defender requires more than building shooting skills on a range. It's also a development of the heart, mind, body, and spirit. Join us as we explore what it truly means to be a defender in your training and in your everyday life. Welcome to Defenders Live.
Hi, good evening. We have a little bit of a change tonight. Tonight, I'm taking over the show, and our guest tonight is, of all people, Lora Thorson. Several months ago, I asked Lora to schedule one night aside for me to interview somebody. I didn't tell her who the guest was. She was a little bit nervous, actually apprehensive, and didn't really want to do that. And I kept it a mystery for quite a while. And then not too long ago, I kind of clued her in that she's the guest. Here's the issue, right? We've all gotten to know and really kind of fall in love with Lora and what she's doing, the mission of what she's doing. And at the very beginning of Defenders Live, she took the time to introduce herself and tell you about herself. But it was really just a capsule. It was a thumbnail, a quick sketch of who she is and what she is. And over the last year or so of this show, we've all kind of seen her and her journey. But I think it's time that we, the audience, you, the audience, get to know Lora at the level that we at Defenders know her. It's been a remarkable journey with a remarkable person, and I think the audience deserves to know who this lady is and really get to know her on a deeper level. So tonight, our guest is none other than Lora Thorson. So we've titled the show tonight Her Self-Defense Journey, or my self-defense journey, and really it has to do with God, guns, and gratitude. And I think the gratitude part is probably one of the biggest things here that I'd like to talk about tonight. But before we get to that, since I'm not behind the scenes running the show, we've picked on and asked our own Brent Hickman, both an instructor here at Defenders, but also the owner of Haven Defense Company, to be behind the scenes, to run the comments, to run the banners, the tickers, and everything else. So Brent's going to be behind the scenes. And because he's such, one, a remarkable instructor, but two, just an incredible human being with a fantastic company, give me about 30 seconds here. I want to introduce you, if you haven't seen it already, Haven Defense, which is the company he and his wife, his bride, Marissa, it's the company they own that makes the holsters that we do here at Defenders. So take a second, watch this about Haven Defense Co.
Be sure to check out Haven Defense Company. Brent Hickman and his family own this top-notch holster company in Colorado. All of his products are made in the USA, and their customer service is unbeatable. Don't take my word for it. Check it out on his website yourself. Brent makes sure each holster that leaves his shop is the very best holster he can deliver for you. He's my go-to guy for all things concealment. For 10% off any holster, go to havendefenseco.com and use promo code DEFENDERS at checkout.
So I'm going to go ahead and surprise you guys. And behind the scenes, there's Brent. Brent, thanks for doing this.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for asking me to help out. I'm glad I could. And thanks again for supporting us, and especially to all your watchers too. Thank you all so much. So,
by the way, I just started using that new holster I got from you. Fantastic, man. So, all right. So now Lora usually starts her shows when she can with a tidbit ahead of time. So let me give you kind of a tidbit. We'll call it Adam's tidbits tonight, but just a short tidbit. Tonight or today, I was doing a workout. I was doing a lifting workout and a run workout. And as I was doing it, one, because of some previous injuries I've been dealing with recently, and then just terrible nutrition, I realized my nutrition behind the workout is what was holding me back. And it caused me to start thinking about something that's been on my mind of what holds you back, what's holding you back. Whatever it is endeavor in life you're trying to go to, are you actually pursuing it with intensity and with purpose and with clarity of vision? And I found for me that there are certain things that have been holding me back in business and other things recently that were understandable, right? Here at Defenders, we had a massive hack that somebody tried to get into a bunch of our systems. Ultimately, it was all being able to be squashed and really well done. But it took really about a good month or so of extremely hard work, some stress and anxiety, and a lot of money to secure everything and make sure it was there. So Could we say that one of the things that held me back as I was trying to do the business that I need to do was one, the effects of, could we say, online criminality? And that's just part of life, right? In my own working out recently, I've been going through a lot of PT or physical therapy simply for some old injuries in the military and the police world. And it's kind of held me back and it's held things down. That's, again, part of life. It's just understandable. It holds you back a little bit. But what about this? Back to the workout that I was doing. You know, the one thing that was holding me back in my own workout, and it's just a small synopsis or a picture of life, was really my intentionality of just how I fuel my body, the things that were going in. I know exactly what it was that's holding me back. And I've got to do a better job of not eating or consuming that type of thing. But I mean, that was the one thing that was holding me back. And I realized that was something, an artificial barrier I was putting on myself that was limiting an area that I want to grow in. What is it you're allowing yourself to hold yourself back, right? Is it fear of others? Is it not wanting to hold yourself accountable or disciplined the way I need to do on nutrition? Today I was speaking at great length with somebody who's become, I'd say, a friend, even to an extent a mentor, and somebody I've come to admire greatly. I was speaking at great length with a guy named Tim Kelly of Apache Solutions. It's a firearms training company out of North Carolina. And I recently went to an instructor level enrichment course that they just put on, which, by the way, is fantastic. You guys should check that out, Apache Solutions. But he brought up something that he was wanting to talk about at an upcoming symposium full of really highly renowned and respected trainers within our industry. And he was going to be talking about, or will be talking about, a subject that is oftentimes of conflict and controversy within the industry that we're in. And it was so interesting that though he had even been privately warned, hey, that's probably not a good idea, he saw the necessity of it, and he didn't allow the possibility that others might criticize him for keeping him from delivering what I think is going to be a very needed message, right? In a sense, he wasn't allowing the fear of others or the opinions of others to hold him back from doing what he thought was necessary to do. What about you? Are you showing that kind of bravery? Are you more afraid of what others might think or do? And is that right there holding you back from pursuing your dreams or doing the things that you need to do or to pursue for the betterment of yourself and others? Or is it maybe finance, which is understandable, right? I've had a lot of different things I'd like to do, but finance sometimes holds you back. Well, is that something that maybe you could find new ways to save, or find ways to just run, to make more income, to be able to achieve the savings you're trying to do, or achieve the financial goals or the things you need to do because of finance? Are you letting finance be the limiting factor? What is it you're holding yourself back? And I just thought that little tiny synopsis of the workout today, I knew my fuels were holding me back from the goals that I want to get to. And it was kind of a picture of, hey, am I letting other things in my life hold me back from what I need to do? So that was my challenge for you tonight. Are you letting things hold you back? And if it is, what is it? And is it something that you can address? Or is it just natural and understandable? It takes patience and time to be able to fix those things because it's just part of life. Or is it an artificial barrier that it might take a little bit extra work and effort and intentionality to be able to overcome? What's holding you back? I've determined, for me, I'm not going to let anything hold me back from the mission of reaching people and growing people for the defense of life and those they love. And, you know, that might be a hard thing to sometimes overcome, the artificial barriers we have in place, but I'm determined to do it. And I challenge you, don't let things hold you back. Anyways, on that topic, let's go to Lora, because this is a lady I think has faced some pretty rough things and has never let something hold back. And it's part of the reason I asked her to join Defenders, is I saw somebody could surmount things that might sometimes hold people back. So on that note, let's bring Lora into the conversation. Hi, Lora.
Hi.
How are you?
This is kind of weird being in the hot seat, Adam, but I can say that I really enjoy you driving the show, you driving the ship tonight. That's really nice.
I don't.
Get a night off, so to speak.
I'd rather sit back, be fat, dumb, and lazy, and do nothing except for push buttons and let you do all the work. So anyways, it's time for you to be interviewed properly, right? To really kind of flesh out who Lora Thorson is and figure this out. So thanks for being willing to do this. I know you were nervous, but
Yeah.
There's no gotchas here. We just want to know who you are. At least I want others to see what I think Brent and I and somebody at Defenders and your family sees in you. So, do you mind? Can you start at the very beginning? Where were you born? Where'd you grow up? And kind of, if you don't mind, tell me, give us an idea. What was your growing up life like?
Wow, you're going to start at the beginning, huh?
Yep.
I wasn't ready for that. I should have asked you what the questions were before the show. That would have been very helpful. Well, I grew up in the Midwest. So my husband jokingly calls me a flatlander because he grew up in the mountains and I grew up in the flat. It's hilly there. It's not flat, but I grew up in the Midwest in Northwest Missouri. I grew up on a backgrounding feedlot, and most people don't know what that means. But for those of you that aren't into ranching, I guess it's a cattle feedlot that it doesn't matter the details. But anyway, I grew up on a ranch / farm. There were row crops, cattle, horses, and my dad was a farmer rancher, I guess you'd say. And this is really hard.
Okay. So stop right there. Stop right there. Right.
Okay.
I used to go to a town called Greeley, Colorado, decently often. They had something called the Mumford Yards, which was what you're talking about, feedlot for cows. And it's one of the biggest ones in the nation. And that place just stunk. Did you have the same
I
thing?
love the smell of a feedlot. I absolutely love the smell of a feedlot. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
guys, it's like a bad diaper. It's terrible.
no, it's not like one at all. Now, a hog feedlot is, or a dairy is. It smells horribly bad, but a cattle feedlot is not that way at all. But um, yeah, so I grew up there, and I would say the advantages of growing up the way I did was I was sort of like a wild child. I have older brothers and sisters, but they're a lot older than me. The next oldest, I think, is like 15 years older than me. So I grew up kind of like an only child. And probably the biggest advantage I had from growing up that way was that I was kind of just set out on my own to be wild and do crazy things. And at that time, I had no fear of anything. I loved horses. I lived and breathed horses. And so anytime that I wanted any solace in my life at all, I would go out to the barn and I would just hang out with my horses. And I had no fear of any animals or horses at all. And I would just jump on any of the horses bareback with a halter and just take off and just go as far as I could go. And that was just what I did. I just loved doing that. And
So
but
as Robin Sandoval of AGAG, A Girl and a Gun, says, you grew up as a feral child, huh?
yeah, I did. I grew up as a feral child, and I think there are some advantages to that, but there are also disadvantages to that. But I did grow up with a dad, especially, who was had a very strong work ethic. I've talked about him before on the show, but one of the things that he taught me, not directly but indirectly, that's so valuable to my life now, is that he is, the typical farmer rancher, right? Gets up early every morning, same time every morning, goes out, does chores no matter what. You can't just not do chores because you don't feel like it. And his chores were extensive. Like, I think I remember them being 2 or 3 hours worth of chores in the morning and same in the evening. And that was just what he did. But the thing that he taught me the most was in the discipline of him doing that. He never complained about it, one, but he also never was like overly excited about it either. It was just a strict discipline thing that happened every day, and there never was a day off ever, no matter what the weather or anything. So I think that's valuable.
So I think I'm the hardest working lazy person you'll ever meet, but yet you exhaust me, right? Your work ethic is just incredible. So do you feel like you got that from that type of lifestyle and from dad?
Yeah, and it wasn't forced on me. It was, and I don't even think I was that disciplined when I was younger because, as I said, I was pretty much feral. So it wasn't like he imposed it on me. It was just like through osmosis somehow. It just is part of who I am. And
Hmm.
so that's so valuable to me, especially now as I'm getting older and I'm more mature now than I was then. And in the goals in my life and my family. Sorry, that light keeps flickering. It has a short. Um, it's just become so valuable to me, especially now. And as I'm working on myself and my personal growth in various areas, that kind of mindset has really been valuable.
So, a working but happy childhood, and brothers, sisters, all that stuff, cousins surrounding you.
No, not a lot of extended family, mostly immediate family, and I've gotta be honest, it wasn't always, peaches and cream. There's a lot of not peaches and cream in my family, but, um, it's just the way it is. We all see things differently and don't see eye to eye on things sometimes, and since my siblings are a lot older than me, I wasn't super close to them, but everybody kind of went down a different path in life, and I wouldn't say we're all super close, but yeah, I'm not sure what to say about that.
So, is where you are today, is this something that you would have seen yourself at, say, getting out of high school, maybe going into your college years, or however you did that? Is this a completely different thing than you imagined beginning life?
Yeah, there's absolutely no way I would ever imagine myself in this position doing the work I'm doing now.
Okay, so let's talk high schoolish. Where did you want to go? What was the beginning dream?
Oh, well, when I was in high school, I my sport was high school rodeo. So I high school rodeoed. I went to state, and ironically, I was a rodeo queen. I was first runner up as rodeo queen for the state of Missouri, and that sounds silly, but really the things I got from that were leadership and impromptu speaking, public speaking, and horsemanship was part of it, which was not a big deal, but, being able to get up in front of people and speak, I didn't realize at the time, but I think everyone should do that. I think everyone should learn how to do that because that serves me now as a coach and instructor. Even though a lot of times it's one-on-one, there are a lot of times that it's a big group of people, and you need to know how to deliver a message effectively in front of people. And it doesn't matter, what your role is at the time or your capacity. That's something that I learned early on that I think was very helpful. But in high school, I wouldn't say I was all over the place. I was still horse crazy. Like my whole life revolved around horses. So high school rodeo. And so when I grew up, I wanted to be a horse trainer. I wanted to be a photographer, or I remember this on the bio my senior year. I wanted to be a horse trainer, a photographer, or an auctioneer. Can you believe that? Do you even know what an
Auctioneer.
auctioneer is, Adam?
Yes, yes, I do.
Yeah,
Yes, I do.
well, my dad jokingly said, like, I definitely had the capacity to be an auctioneer because I never stopped talking. That was the joke. Because yeah,
Can you do the auctioneer talk?
and all I remember is when I first started training, like, I kinda dipped my toe in it, and one of the exercises that you had to do was you had to say, "A big brown bug bit a big brown bear," like, as fast as you could, as many times as you could. And that was like a warm-up thing for your auctioneering. So I think you should try that and see if you can do
How
that.
how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck would?
No, it's not the same thing. So yeah,
Okay.
anyway, that's what happened there. And then I ended up going to college, not doing any of those things actually. I went to college on an animal science degree. I was pre-vet. And so the story behind that is because I was basically like my dad's shadow growing up. Like me and my dad were super, super close, and we still are. And so I was his shadow growing up. And my dad, with the experience level that he has in the line of work that he has, like to me he is a veterinarian without the degree. Because he's got like 60 years, probably like 70 years of experience now in that type of work. And so since I shadowed him my entire youth, He used to he used to call me Doc. Like, it was a joke, kind of like, there'd be a calf in the chute or something, and there'd be a problem or an issue, and he'd say, "What do you think, Doc?" And so we would, I learned from him a lot of that kind of thing. And I think the reason that I wanted to go into pre-vet, I still love animals, but I think a lot of it had to do with that relationship with him. And so it was sort of almost at the time, if I'm being honest, it was really more about pleasing him than it was about my passion. Because I was actually more interested in the photography and the art side of things, the creative side of things. But my dad really valued a career that could make a lot of money and provide a secure future. And so that's why I went that route initially in college.
Wise.
And huh?
That's wise.
Right, it's wise, but it didn't feed my soul. It didn't
Yeah.
feed it didn't feed me, and I learned later after I got out of college when I changed careers and moved to Montana, I will get I guess do you want me to keep going here? Because I feel like
Well, I'm going to
this
guide you.
is so weird.
Give us a
Okay,
little bit more,
okay.
but I got you here.
Oh, this is so hard. So so when I was in college and I was pre-vet, I decided my junior year to no longer be pre-vet. That I did not have what it took to be a veterinarian because I had such a soft heart. And veterinarians, obviously they do need soft hearts, but they also need to be able to make really, really hard decisions, life or death decisions. And I did not feel comfortable doing that. I remember the moment where I decided this is not for me. And I was working for a vet in college, and we were doing a cosmetic surgery on, I can't remember the breed of the dog. It could have been a boxer, maybe, where they cosmetically, make their ears stand up straight. And the amount of blood, and I wasn't queasy about the blood, but the amount of blood to do that surgery. And then the fact that I'm pretty sure I was working for kind of a redneck vet who like smoked while he was doing surgery, um, I don't think that dog was completely under when he started cutting on that dog. And so between that and just I felt like this surgery was so unnecessary based on the amount of pain that was being, incurred and the blood and everything. I was like, what is this about? Like, this isn't about saving lives or helping an animal get healthy. This is just because some human thinks their ears should stand up. And I'm sure there's plenty of reasons why people do that. I'm not saying that, but just for me personally, that was kind of my turning point where I was just like, I don't think this is for me. I'm out. And so I ended my college career with a major in animal science and a minor in public relations of all things. And the only reason I got a minor in public relations because I tried to pivot at the last minute and try to go into a more creative field. So anyway, that's what I ended up with. And then after that was recruited by, of all places, uh, a commodity broker company. So I became a commodity
Okay.
broker in a
Okay.
sense. They're called grain merchandisers, but it was just essentially commodity broker after that. And so that wasn't in the plans. It was just me getting out of college. I've got this degree. I don't know where to go with it. What can I do? And an opportunity came up, and it was a lucrative opportunity with solid pay, benefits, and all the stuff that checked the boxes that I thought would make me happy. And it was okay for a while. I was really good at it because it was super fast paced. I learned a lot, and I'm really glad that I was involved in it. And but over time, I started to lose who I was. It just like is slow soul sucking. I don't know if anybody else can relate out there, but there's just a slow losing of myself and huge question of like, what am I doing here? Like, this isn't my passion. And what's this going to look like in 30 years? Am I going to be happy that I'm still here? Yeah, I'll have a bunch of money and probably a big fat nest egg, but that's it. Like, yeah. So anyway, that's when I made the decision to actually go after what I really wanted in life, which was the first really, really hard decision for me.
So let's jump to your family, right? You're married to a good man, a really good man, and a couple of kiddos here. How'd you guys meet? How'd that happen?
Gosh. So I was a barrel racer. So I didn't tell you this part of the story. When I went to college, I had to sell all my horses when I went to college, which was devastating for me. I was so devastated that I had to sell my horses to go to college. And so my biggest goal getting out of college was, yes, get a job making good money. But the reason for it, not just to be stable, but was also so I could buy horses back and get back into rodeo. And so when I got out of college, I got a good job. And one of the first things I did was buy a barrel horse. And so I went through quite a few. But anyway, long story short, I was barrel racing I was in southern Iowa at this point. I had moved to southern Iowa, and I was barrel racing, and I bought this horse that I shouldn't have bought. I don't know why I did it, but anyway, he bucked me off. And I mean, I landed right on my head. That was my first concussion.
That's what happened, huh?
Yeah, I've had 3 concussions, so that's what's wrong with me, in case you want to know. That's where it all started. But anyway, I got bucked off this horse, and anyway, Justin, my now husband's mom, also was a barrel racer in this same like area. And anyway, she was sort of an acquaintance, sort of a friend, but I knew who she was. And she was talking about how she was looking at my saddle, and she was like, I think the saddle doesn't really fit your horse right. I think the saddle was pinching your horse, and I think that's what caused him to buck and all this and that. And then she said, I don't know exactly how it all happened, but something to the effect of, my husband, or not my husband, my son is a saddle maker. He lives in Montana, and he's coming back to Iowa to visit. Maybe you could ask him about your saddle. And my jaw just dropped wide open, because for my entire childhood, nobody really knows this, I dreamed about Montana. Like, I didn't travel much growing up. Like, if the rodeo was more than an hour away from home, because as I told you before, my dad had chores. We had chores twice a day, to go back to. So we couldn't go very far because we had to get back to chore, or dad did. And so it wasn't like I had been well traveled at that point. So anyway, he came back to Iowa, and he checked out my saddle. And this is really the kicker of what sealed the deal, so to speak, was that when he checked out my saddle, he said, yeah, I think you probably should sell the saddle. It doesn't fit your horse. You know what? I will help you sell it. I'll just take it, and I'll just help you sell it, get rid of it for you, and then you can buy something else. And usually when that's the case, the person, the saddle maker or whoever it is, they ask for a commission, right? A fee. So, that they know somebody but he didn't. He just did it for free. And I was so blown away by that, and so skeptical, because I thought, why is he being so nice to me? Like, and you shouldn't be that way, but I was just like, what's the catch? I really was wondering what the catch was, because why is somebody so nice? But anyway, he was that nice. That's just who he was. And that's who he is. He's just a super nice person. And so anyway, I mean, I could tell you more, but as they say, the rest is history. But we ended up, and I got to go into like all the details, but we ended up dating after that. And then, I don't know, it was 2 or 3 years later, we were married. And then that's when I decided to step out of the job I was in, the cushy, nice job that more than paid the bills, and took off for Montana. That was in 2007. And
I understand the call of the West, right? I grew up in West Africa, of all places, and I grew up dreaming of the U.S. West, and so I get it. And once I've been to Montana now several times, my goodness, there's fewer places more beautiful or more calling on earth. It
Yeah.
sounds like too that you and my hot little wife, Melissa, you two would get along so well, right? She's a dressage person, grew up on a ranch, just as masterful a horseman as I've ever seen. I think you two girls would get along just fine. So you're both business owners, right? You and Justin, your
Hmm.
husband. And just quickly, can you tell us a little bit about what he's doing? Because I've been in his shop. It's so extremely impressive. Can you tell folks what he does?
Yeah, well, he builds custom saddles. And that's the short version of the story, but what he truly is he's a craftsman. He's an
Oh yeah,
artist, and he's been
incredible.
doing it. Yeah, he's been doing it for a long time. I think he went full time in I want to say like 2015. And the fact that he was able to go full time and is now, continues to work full time in the saddle shop is an anomaly. It's a trade that is dying. It's a skill set, unfortunately, that isn't as prominent as it used to be. And I really admire how much he is so passionate about it. I mean, he'll set and tool on a saddle literally all day long, and it's tiring, I'm sure, but I mean, I couldn't do it for 5 minutes. He's
Yeah,
just so passionate about it, and he's constantly learning new things, and I don't think he
yeah.
realizes how good he is.
Yeah, sitting there and watching him, the patience and the artistic detail is to me maddening, right? But I was just sat in awe. Folks don't know this yet, but Justin is starting to build some just really high end belts, leather belts that we'll be telling you guys about here soon. They'll be available for release, but just beautiful belts. You can get Defender's logo on there and stuff. Just incredible stuff. So, all right, so. Can you give us an idea, right? I have a pretty good understanding of what happened, but can you give for others what started your self-defense journey? And later, once we get a little bit past that, I want to introduce to people how I found you in a sense. But I'd like to have people have an idea of what brought you to the self-defense community, because I don't think this was originally on your radar.
Oh gosh, no. It was not on my radar. I mean, I before I got involved in self-defense, I was extremely naive, and
Typical.
to a fault. I mean, I think there's a danger in being that naive, and I obviously learned almost the hard way. I had a close call. So I was working for a real estate company as their marketing director in 2016. I think the year was 16 when it happened. I'm pretty sure that was the year. But anyway, part of my job was to do the photography and the drone work
Right.
for properties that were coming onto the market for this real estate company, right? And so usually when I do that or did that, I was told the address and I just went on location and I just did that alone by myself. But in this particular instance, the location it was kind of out there. It was kind of in the middle of nowhere. And the realtor um, offered to drive me there just so that I wouldn't get lost, which turned out to be my saving grace.
Hmm.
Also, the realtor, I didn't understand at the time, I had no clue at the time, was actually extremely well trained, not only in handgun, but in de-escalation, situational awareness. Like he had been training with lots of people that knew their stuff. I had no idea. So we were driving to this location out in the middle of nowhere. We're on this gravel road, like a really narrow gravel road where you really have to try to almost get off the road in order to pass somebody if somebody's coming towards you.
It's Montana.
Right, it's Montana, so I mean, it's wide open space. Where we were, there were no houses around because what I was shooting was bare land. It wasn't a house, it wasn't a residence, it was bare land. And so we're on this gravel road, this really narrow gravel road, and I'm not even sure where we are because we'd been talking the whole time. He'd been driving, and probably I'd been talking more than him. I don't know. But you know how sometimes when you ride along with somebody and you've been talking, you don't pay attention to where you turned or where you're going or anything like that. So I had no concept of where I was. Honest to goodness. I maybe could have made it home if I'd have gotten lucky, but I wasn't sure where I was. And so we're going down this road and there's a hill ahead of us. And over this hill, and we hadn't seen any traffic at all for a really long time. But over the hill pops this probably like a 70s model car, like one of those old battle box cars, that's got the suspension, that like one of those, except it was a beater. It was like a beater car. And it was going extremely slow. It was going slower than it probably should have, even on a gravel road, which was kind of like suspicious. And as he came down the hill and more down on the flat, he actually stopped. He stopped us. And also, one other thing you need to know about this is that the realtor I was with was a very looked like a very well-to-do person, okay? And he was driving a Raptor. So he was driving like a really expensive pickup, a nice pickup, right? Which is relevant to the story because when this guy stopped us on the road, I could immediately tell he was a scary dude, okay? And I know you don't want to judge a book by its cover, but this dude was scary. And he was out of his mind on something. I don't know what was wrong with him, but he wasn't even hardly making any sense, anything that he said. And he was not happy. He was really mad. And it kind of started off with something having to do with, oh, you Bozeman people with your fancy cars and all your money and all that. There's sort of that kind of talk, And I immediately knew, like, as soon as I saw the guy, I was a little bit like, "Ugh." But then when he started talking, I realized he wasn't in his right mind. I, all I remember was trying to suck myself into the seat of the pickup and like become camouflaged. Like I wanted to just disappear because I knew that the driver was talking to him and I didn't want to bring any attention to myself. And at the moment when all this was happening, all I could think was, oh, what am I going to do if something happens here? Because it was pretty escalated when it started. Uh, but we had no cell service where we were. There was no way to call for help. And there was no other human around that I knew of that I could find. And I'm thinking, if I take off running, I just have to be faster than him. You know what I mean? Like there was no cover for as far as you could see. Like the next tree was, I don't even know how far away. So I'm thinking all these things, like wouldn't even know what to do. I was just terrified and I was frozen. Luckily, the guy driving, as I told you, had lots of training and he stayed calm the whole time. And no matter what this dude said, he stayed calm. And I remember him saying something to the guy like, "Hey, what's your name?" He was saying stuff like the cops say, you know what I mean? And I'm sure that you know all about this kind of training, but he was talking to him like a human and not letting anything escalate. Anyway, there was a point where the guy reached in between his seat and the console. And that's when I saw the driver that I was with. He had one of those magnetized things under his steering column where his gun was. And that's when I saw him casually lean over and still keep talking to the guy, but he just had his hand on the gun. And that's when I was like, okay, this is like, granted, this all happened. It wasn't like a long extended period of time, but in your mind, sometimes these things are like slow motion. And anyway, I think at one point the guy got out of the car and got like on the driver's side of the pickup. And but eventually, because of his training, got back into his car and left for whatever reason. I don't remember the conversation because again, I was just like so frozen the whole time. I think I was like out of body almost.
So this kind of woke you up. Is that what you'd say?
Yeah. Yeah, it woke me up to a few things because after that, the guy left, but because of who I was with, I realized it might not be over because of what he said. And he goes, "I'm going to position us on top of this hill. I'm going to park the truck like this. You're going to do your thing. You're going to fly the drone and I'm going to stand right here. I'm going to watch for this dude. If he comes back, then what I want you to do if he comes back is I want you to get here and stay here." So thank God for that, right? Because what if he wouldn't have been with me? So that was what was going through my mind later was, what if he hadn't have been with me? What would I have done? And so and on the drive home, there was a lot of conversation about not just what had happened, but like how I pretty much didn't have a clue about any anything involving self-defense.
So
It never occurred to me.
what's so interesting to me is, we do here at Defenders, we oftentimes in classes we do when then drills or if then. It sounds like this is what this guy did. And
Yeah.
what was his name again?
Josh.
Josh. Okay. It sounds like Josh. He kind of, once he got parked, he's like, hey, if this happens, here's where I'm going.
Mhm.
So that's the proper defensive mindset. I'd tell you that is so needed.
Mhm.
What an interesting way to be introduced to that. Okay. So from there, right at that point, you must have realized, hey, maybe I need to get more involved in the defensive community or do something. It sounds like you went off and got some type of gun training. Where'd you go? How'd that start?
Well, what really it was that had been on my mind previously to get my permit to carry, but just like many things in life, I just thought, well, someday I'll do that. And then someday never comes, right? It
Mhm.
never was a high enough priority that I ever really did it. And so I just found the first local, gun training class I could find and just got into the like lowest level and started there. And I was lucky that there were good people there that, trained me. And, one of those people that, her name's Trish. She worked at the place where I got my first training. And Trish really was an inspiration to me because she was a woman and she was an instructor and she really took me under her wing. And I think she took me through my very first training session, like a one-on-one thing. And I was just like everybody else when I first started. I did all the wrong things. I didn't know what I was doing, but I kept with it. And because she was patient with me and kept my nerves calm, I continued on with it. And then after that, I kind of got a bug, I guess you'd say. And I started getting better.
Well, if you spend time with Trish, she'll inspire pretty much
Yeah.
anybody. So you started in the right place. I'm glad you met her that
Yeah.
way. All right. So from there, now when I met you, you were a USCCA instructor and all that. What happened there? What drove you to do that? To become an instructor in a sense?
Well, I just kept going back, to training at that facility where Trish was, and I basically, like, just took every single class they offered. Like, I became like, kind of obsessed with it, I guess. I just wanted to learn everything. I started with guns, and then they had, like, a general self-defense class without guns, and then they had I don't remember all the stuff I trained, just everything they offered. I just took all of it. And over the course of a couple years, they got to know me, and then they approached me and said, hey, have you ever thought about being an instructor? Like, you're a good shooter and you're a good communicator. And I was like, are you serious? Like, had never crossed my mind to be an instructor. And but yeah, so then I started. Yeah, I think my first certification was USCCA.
Hmm. So for those you don't know, and by the way, post your questions here. We're getting to the Q&A. We're getting towards the end of the hour anyway, so please post stuff up. But I think people need to hear a little bit about how, in a sense, Laura met Defenders and we've met Laura. So I'm teaching a course in Montana. What was it, Laura, 2 years or so ago? I'm teaching,
Would
I'm
have
up there,
yeah.
I don't know, doing what I usually do when I go up there. When I tend to go, I tend to go for about 10 days straight and just do all sorts of training. And uh, uh, Mike and Laura, I didn't never met them before. They showed up and came to a gun class, right? And they had all their USCCA stuff on, all their gun
Me
stuff
and
on
Mike
there.
didn't know each other before that class.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay. I assumed
No,
you guys did because
no, we were just partnered up.
you guys paired up like two girls and it was just gab fest, right?
Yeah.
So I put you two off to the side over here because you're gun instructors and uh and you know, we started talking and started teaching, and I was watching stuff that I'm like, oh no, a lot's got to change, right? And it seems like
Mhm.
anytime I get instructors showing up, that usually there's a lot of work that's got to be done there. And of course, I started trying to fix stuff that I saw were wrong. And I watched Laura's back get up. She got all huffy and she just almost got mouthy,
I
right?
wasn't mad at you. I was just mad
Whoa.
because I wish I'd have known this sooner.
Yeah, because everything I was showing you was really flying in the face of everything I think you had done some other places. And
Yeah.
it was just such an interesting journey to watch just the anger, the fight on the inside of yourself. And at times I thought it was directed towards me, and I thought, am
It
I
was.
going to donkey punch this girl in the face here? What's going on here? and it grew from there. But as I watched you, I realized, okay, one, good communicator, two, I think can motivate and lead people. And this is somebody who's meldable and moldable. And that's a rarity, right? That's a rare quality, but also can communicate things into others. And then after that, and then I got to watch you and a lot of others, but I got to watch you really almost for 10 days straight as you were dumb enough to come to more and more classes and throughout that entire period. And I just realized, okay, this is somebody that I think needs to be hauled into or dragged, kicking and stringing him into defenders. And then I called you up on the way home and kind of threw the idea at you. And
Oh
I
my
was
gosh. I'll never
pretty
forget
glad
that
you
phone call.
accepted it. Yeah. I
I
mean,
was so floored.
well, I mean, when you run into quality, it's obvious, and that should be quality needs to be gotten out into our community. And I'm just so glad you were crazy enough to join us here. So tell me from there, what led you to run Defenders Live? I know the story, but I'd like for others to hear it once more quickly because we don't have a lot of time.
I know. Sorry. I probably got windy a few times and didn't realize it. You're supposed to cut me off if I talk too long.
Just go.
Defenders Live was, I didn't know what it was. I just felt a need to try to bridge a gap. I felt like there was a gap between people who, like me, were on the fence or kind of in the back of their minds someday wanted to do gun training or someday wanted to carry concealed, but just didn't really know where to go or what the next step was, so they just didn't do it. It's a big leap from being in that mindset to signing up for a gun class. And I don't think us in the community a lot of times realize how big of a leap that is for people. That's a very courageous thing to do for many
It's
people,
huge.
especially people who have gone through stuff already. Yeah. And for some reason, I felt like a lot of those people, first of all, I could relate with because I was that person. And second of all, I just felt a need to bridge the gap. And I didn't quite know how to do that, but I thought maybe that having some kind of a platform to help lead people down that path, or at least give them some education, some inspirations, and build their confidence a little bit before they started in that journey or while they're in that journey. It just felt like that's what I was supposed to do. And I can't really say how I knew for sure, but I do remember I approached you with the idea, and the idea initially was not me doing it. It was just an idea. And as many times it happens, the person with the idea ends up like doing it because you're like, yeah, you'd be great for that. I'm like, no, not me. I don't want to be on camera.
You
That was really, and even still now, it's very hard for me sometimes to show up because it's a vulnerable thing to do, to put yourself out there, especially live on a show. And then, to stay consistent with it takes real dedication. So I'm really glad I did. It's one of the best things I've ever done. And I feel like I'm doing good work. I'm going to keep continuing. And it's because you encouraged me, Adam. I mean, if you hadn't have seen what you saw, because I honestly sometimes don't see what you see. If I didn't have a mentor that saw something in me, and just like what Trish saw in me when I was in the earlier days, if I didn't have people in my life who encouraged me and helped me down the path, then I don't think I'd be here right now. So I don't really give myself the credit for that.
No, and you should. And I think you're bringing some excellent people here, and people need to hear this, right? Well, we don't want, and I know this is things you've said that we don't want to just be the standard gun guy YouTube podcast, and I just appreciate how you're doing this. So I'm going to presume, okay, wildly, that if you were recommending people go to training, you'd recommend defenders. Okay. Obviously, with you and people, you should go spend time with Lora. She's a phenomenal instructor. By the way, Brent, also go spend time with him. So let's go with the presumption that you'd recommend people come to defenders. But let's put that aside. Who are the
Mhm.
other people within the training space that you go, okay, they motivate me, they communicate well, and I'd recommend people go to training with? And maybe it's somebody you've actually trained with, or somebody you go,
Mhm.
I know based on what I see, that's somebody I should go to, and so should others.
Mhm. Well, I don't know if I should recommend anybody that I haven't gone to, but, names that come to mind in the forefront are Brian Hill for sure. He's been a
Mhm.
mentor of mine. Um, a lot of maybe this audience doesn't know James Fleming, but I interviewed him early on the show.
Fantastic interview.
James Fleming is a wonderful human being and a great trainer. Warfighter Concepts is his
Yep.
business, and I wanna bring him back to Montana too. I'd really like to do that. Riley Bowman, I took his class. His heart's in the right place. The dude has skills for days.
Oh,
His
yeah,
communication
incredible.
style Yeah, his communication style is different than any other trainer I've worked with, but I liked that it was different. Um, that was, really helpful, and, you know, uh well, Trish Trish there in Three Forks at MTFI, she's an excellent, excellent person. She's got a group of women that she works with every week, there at the range, and she does everything in her power to help people, and she's got a great heart for serving as well. So, I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out
Yeah,
that's obvious.
Trish jumped in and helped this this last year here when I was up in Montana, and just so kind, so good, so adept, and uh,
Mhm.
yeah, I'd also say the same thing. Trish is somebody to spend time with. Um, who motivates you? Who inspires you?
Oh, geez. It's really funny. I get motivation and inspiration in places that I don't expect every single day. And a lot of times it's small interactions with people. It's it's not one particular person all the time, but if you look for that in your life, you'll find it and you'll be aligned more with the types of people that are on your team that support you and that are doing good things in their own life. Like they don't have to be in the firearms training community in order to be inspirational to your firearms journey. There's people in my church that I really admire and look up to that have helped me so much. Adam, you absolutely have helped me in so many ways. You've inspired me to be myself. And I think I've said this before, but when I very first found you and I looked on the Defenders USA YouTube channel, back when you were like just shooting stuff on your phone, you know, um, I was inspired by that because it was imperfect. I
Mm.
was inspired by it because you weren't trying to you we like I think maybe I got this from you that the message is more important than the messenger. I learned that from you. So, the team at Defenders inspires me. They're all very come from varying backgrounds, but all have a heart of gold. And that mission is just, you can't help but want to get behind people like that. And so I can't even, I mean, there's so many people that I wouldn't even know to name names really. And it's not, and they're not big names, right? They're just everyday people doing extraordinary things. And that's what inspires me. That's what I love to see.
It's so interesting you mentioned that it's oftentimes stuff outside the firearms training community that's so inspirational and that also relates back to it. I can't agree
Mhm.
more, right? My For those who know my hot little wife and what she does, just so inspirational. And I watch, one of my boys, if you know the story of Axel, just that right there in so many ways applied, not just to firearms, but so many other things. And just there's so many things you can find outside that communicates here if you can find the messages. I want to jump to something that in this last little bit that we have before we get to questions, something that's been very notable. So for you, chicken bone rattling, goat blood drinking, Ouija board playing people, this is time to tune out. But for those of you who have any type of faith, Laura, you recently, in the last while, have found the Lord, and you even took the courageous step of going into and getting baptized. Um,
Hmm.
um, how 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 has that impacted you?
I think that it's changed everything for me because I'm not proud to say that, in my 20s, teens, 20s, and some of my 30s, even though I have always been a person that wanted to do good things, I wanted to be a good moral person. Um, I've done a lot of things that are the contrary. And most of it was really just not really knowing any better. Um, but I'm really kind of not proud to say that I used to be the type of person who would look at a Christian and think that they were weak.
Mhm.
And I mean, almost like make fun of them because that's what for whatever reason, that's what I thought like Christians were. I just thought they were weak and, hadn't gone through some of the stuff I had gone through. You know what I mean? And it was such a self-righteous attitude to think that way and to be so judgmental. And now I realize that the strongest people I know have the strongest faith and they put their faith first. I mean, I had it so backwards. And it's been a slow progression. It's not been an overnight thing. Um, but I guess I think it's important to say that because just because see me like now or know me now and think, oh, well, she seems like such a nice person or whatever, you don't know what's going on inside someone's head. You don't know the thoughts they're thinking. You don't know the judgment they have in their heart or the hardening in their heart. And so I think when I made the distinction, and your dad helped me with this too, Adam, was when I made the distinction that we're not saved through works.
Mhm.
We're saved by grace. That
Yeah.
really was impactful to me. And that was captured on camera too. Like everything is captured on camera now. But yeah, that was really impactful for me, and I think that it's a daily struggle. I'm not gonna sit here and lie and say that, "Oh, I came to faith, I believe in Jesus Christ now, and so I'm just good to go." No, quite the opposite. Now
It's
I know
hard.
better. Yeah, now I know better, and so I do better,
Yeah.
and I try to do better, and I fail constantly. I do. Um, and I guess I just always thought that, what that would look like would just be like, "Oh, well, you're saved and now you're good to go and you're, perfect." Like, it's just so the opposite. Like, now the more that I've learned, the more I realize just how little I know.
Hmm. So we have just a few moments left to try to be respectful of people's time. We've got a couple different questions here. And this first one comes from Lisa. If you guys don't know Lisa, she runs a
I love
range out in
Lisa.
Washington. You need to go spend some time with Lisa. She's an incredible human. Anyways, so there's your question. What's the most memorable training class you've taken?
Oh, well, that's pretty easy. That's pretty easy. That was the gauntlet at Adam Winch's first class. That was the gauntlet that was thrown where everything that I ever knew or thought I knew about anything involving a handgun was like just crumbled and then rebuilt back up again. And that was a life-changing experience. I mean, I that took a lot of humble pie on my part. And I didn't go in like chest beating and, it
No,
wasn't like I wasn't
no,
open to it,
no, you were
but
open.
I was open to it, but it didn't mean that it wasn't. I mean, that it was very difficult. It was very difficult.
At first,
And
the fury in your eye couldn't tell if it was me or other things, and later I figured it out. So, okay. So here's the next one from Lisa. If you could say one thing to your former self prior to the encounter, I'm assuming she's talking about you when you were with that realist
mm,
Josh. What would you say?
mm, it can happen to you.
Oh, you know, let me
It
tune in
can
here,
happen.
right? Let
Yeah.
me tune in here, right? As a cop, that's all I saw for over a decade was just evil
You
and
need to make
gore.
yourself bigger, Adam. You're teeny tiny, and here I am huge on the screen the whole time. There we go.
But I saw the gore and the hatred and the meanness of humanity so often, and so often as I talk to victims, they never thought it happened to them. So yeah, I'd say you're on the right track. What else would you tell yourself?
Hmm. I think that you can do more than you think. I think generally the reason people can't or think they can't do things or don't pursue things is because they're getting in their own way, not because something else is. They're just lying to themselves, telling them this external thing makes it so they can't do this, when in reality, it's them holding themselves back most of the time.
Back to the opening statements. All right, next
Yeah.
one. I don't know who this is, but the name's interesting. Trump whoopers. Lori, your fears terrify me. Were you ever able to overcome your fears? Also, how many times since your training have you felt threatened?
Overcome my fears. Well, okay. I guess I should clarify something. When that encounter happened, I was terrified in the moment. But after that happened, it's not like I lived in fear every day. Um I recently had somebody ask me the question about why do you carry a gun every day and live in fear? Like they equated the two together, I guess. And it's really not about that at all. It's quite the opposite. Um, the gun doesn't make me fearless. The gun is just a something I have on
It,
hand
it's just a thing.
if I need it. Yeah, it's the same reason I carry a spare tire. It's the same reason I have a fire extinguisher in my house. It's those kinds of things. So I think that should be clarified. But so it wasn't like I had that experience and then I had to overcome the fear of that moment. It's not like I don't have PTSD over it. It was just a learning opportunity for me to push me into the next step. And um, I felt threatened since my training. Um, uh, Not directly threatened. No, there's nothing in particular that I can say that I felt directly threatened in the moment where I had to take any kind of action. No, but I've definitely had a look out a few times and just paid attention to what was happening and then just got away from the situation.
Well, the beauty I
So,
find is that training brings confidence. And the more
mhm,
you can think through things and prepare for things, the more often you see stuff ahead of time and you can
mhm,
respond better. So,
yeah.
well, we've kind of come to the end of the hour. In fact, we're slightly over. I have no idea what's coming up next
I have no
in the
idea
next
what I just said for the
episodes.
last hour.
So I don't know how to close this out the way you would, telling people who's coming up next because I can't even remember. But folks, the reason we did it this way tonight is I just wanted to flip the script, as you saw in the thumbnail. Is it was time to kind of introduce your host more to you, and just get to know who this person is. And if you don't mind telling people about this show and promoting the show, we're trying to grow the show and the messages of those we bring in. I mean, Laura's bringing in some truly world class experts in a wide variety of areas, and the people that are coming up, we haven't even told you about many of them yet, are just, they're fantastic. So, and it's a pretty diverse group, and we're working on even more. So, if you can promote this show to others and share it with others, we'd love that. If you haven't joined the Defenders Live, go join us on Defenders Live. I think it's on Facebook, and there's a YouTube channel for Defenders Live here too. And Laura, any closing thoughts or anything you want to add to this?
Hmm. I would just say, like, if something's on your heart to do, don't let fear hold you back. Walk through that fear and take the first step, whatever that is, and do it anyway. I really think that that's the only way you can truly grow.
One last question. Heather just put it up there. Uh, what self-defense related books have impacted you the most?
Mm. Well, the first book that I ever read about self-defense, and I don't know that it was necessarily exactly self-defense, but it was around that topic, was On Combat by Lieutenant
Mhm.
Dave Grossman. I've also read Steve Turini's Your Most Powerful Weapon. That was a really helpful book. Left to Bang is a good one. Um, but I think On Combat was my first taste of the true reality of being in an encounter, in a violent encounter. And there were things in that book I'd never even considered before or known about or heard of that like is common knowledge to people that have gone through what you've gone through, Adam. But to me, it was like very eye opening, and I read it twice. And then he also has the book Spiritual Combat too, which was really good.
Interesting you bring up On Combat. I usually put a book back here that I usually want to at least portray to people if they're looking for something. And I debated this one or On Combat. And
Oh,
interesting. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and conclude it for tonight. We're 6 minutes past time, anyways. But thank you
how
so much
dare
for
you
being
go
willing.
past time?
Yeah, exactly. You of all people. But thanks for being willing to be a guest on here. I know you're probably learning about this, but you're a fantastic guest, and I think maybe we'll let you come back.
That would be great. And if you could host every week, that would be even better.
Heck no. Heck no. All right. I think I end this by just have a good night, right? And
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, Defenders Live, we're out. Have a good night.
Thank you.